In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the theory behind our material setup, as well as getting into creating our first module, which is the base color. So the idea behind this is that every material has these attributes called like base color, metallic, specular, etc. And the graphs can get quite complex the more stuff you add. So we kind of want a way to manage all of that and make it easier for future developers to implement things within this material. So the idea is we're going to have modules for each one of these and kind of tailor it to what we want for the end result. So we're going to go ahead, close out of this, and go into our Uber skin. So this is our main material. This is the material we can actually apply to a mesh. And we have it set up to use material functions. What we want to do right now is we want to set this, if you click on this material attributes, set this to subsurface profile. And then we want to actually go back to materials here, create a new folder called SSP for subsurface profile. Go in here, go to materials, go to subsurface profile, create a new subsurface profile called SSP skin. That'll create the subsurface profile, and then we'll just go ahead, plug it into our material. So that's set up right now. Go ahead and save that. Looks like the mesh changed, that's fine. And now that we have that set, we can go ahead. Let me just check these really quick. Those should be fine. We'll also want to use with skeletal mesh since it's most likely going to be on an animated object. And then we also want to do, I guess, static lighting, even though I'm pretty sure Lumen, every lighting has to be dynamic now. Could be wrong. But anyways, just have those checked. We'll save it. Cool. Let me just open up our material instance here for the Uber scan. Move it to the left. Move this one to the left. So I'm just kind of going in order here, like going down the chain, just so that we can see how many like shader instructions this is going to be. The more shader instructions, the more complex your material is going to be. I'm also noticing the texture samples are 3 out of 16, even though we don't really have anything there. So what we actually need to do is we want to actually go back to our project settings, and we want to make sure virtual texturing is enabled. So turn that on, and that means we're going to restart. So I'll restart really quick, and then we'll get back into it. Okay, now we're back. That takes a long time, so maybe just get a coffee or something while you're waiting. Now that we're back, we can go ahead and start making the base material module. So we'll go here, go to the material functions. All right. Okay. And we'll just go ahead and create a MF base color. Or actually, let's call it Uber base color. Let's do that. And drop that in there. Open it up. In here, the way we're going to do this is for each module, we are going to separate out the previous material attributes, only change the attributes that we want to change, and then plug them back into the material attributes. So the new way of doing this in the latest versions of Unreal is using the get and set material attribute nodes. So this allows us to kind of dictate what is actually going to be setting into it, and then what we're actually getting out of the other one. Because previously they had these break and make material attributes. So make was the same, was what set became. So if you say make material attributes, it just gives you this entire list, and we don't need all that. We just need this one here. So that we have the base color. What we can do is let's go over here, go to our head textures, and in here, since we added the virtual texturing, we're actually going to want to go in here and make sure we turn on virtual texturing. So I think it's under texture, and then click on this virtual texture streaming. So we'll do that for each map that we have. And what that does is just like reduces the resource size and allows us to have more than 16 maps if we need, because Unreal has a limit to how many textures we can use per material. We're not going to be using 16, but it's good to do this because it keeps the resources low. So we'll just go into each one and enable virtual texturing. And we can see that the resource size gets dropped pretty drastically, all the way from, what is that, 87,000 kilobytes to, let's see, 87,000 to 29 kilobytes, so there's a slight difference. Alright, now that we have that, we can go back to the base color here, and let's drag in our base color node here, and you can see the virtual texture has VT next to it, and it brings it in as virtual color. So let's go ahead and break down what exactly we want for this base color. So we know we want a map, and what exactly do we want to do with the color after we get it in? We can do like saturation, we can do contrast, intensity, tints, just different stuff like that. So the way this module is going to work is we're going to have all the controls just for base color in here, and then if we ever need to, we can always come back to this base color and add more things to it as we progress down with making this material. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead here and pulling out of this base color node, we're just going to do a simple saturate node. And what this does is it's just going to kind of normalize the value range that we pump into our color maps. That way we're not getting anything that's outside the range of 0 to 1 for each color. Next, what we're going to do is, since we have this base color map in there, we want to allow the user to have control. if they actually want to use this color map, or they can just dictate a simple color. So what we're going to use is a static switch, and we're going to make sure you choose the static switch parameter, and then we'll just call this, I guess, use base color map. And if that's true, plug it into there. If it's false, we'll just do a 3 vector. Change this converted parameter and just call this base color. So now that we have that, we can go here, convert this to a parameter as well. That way we have access to it inside our material instance. We'll just call this the base color map. Cool. And that should give us everything we need for our first basic module. And now we can just go ahead and plug this result into the material attributes. And for this one, we can actually just remove this trash that for now. So we're setting the material attributes for this entire function as the base color here. Actually, the reason I have this here is because later on we can actually set this to shading model, and then we can change the shading model if you actually wanted to use this material for something other than skin. But for now, we'll just go ahead, just leave it as is right here. So if we save this out, we should be able to go over here while it's compiling our shaders, and we can see we have a global parameter called base color, so we can change our base color here. Or if we use base color map, we can actually switch it out for an actual color map. And now that we have that, we can go ahead back here and one thing that we do want to do is every time we put in a texture sampler is we want to actually change the sampler source from texture asset to shared wrap. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow Unreal to use the same exact texture between all different meshes, and it won't cost anything extra. So we'll want to make sure that's as shared wrap. Save that, and that brings our texture samples down to 2. It was at 4. Okay. Can stop reading that. So I'll just clear this up for now. Okay, so the next thing we want to do here is we want to create the adjustments for this color map. So as I said before, we want to do saturation, contrast, and intensity. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to create a static switch parameter, and we're going to name this base color adjust. And we're going to plug this map into false. Okay. We have that. We can drag out of here. Or actually, let's just go down the line this way. It's easier. So the first thing we want to do is actually change the saturation. So Unreal has a node called desaturate, and we're going to do that. And then in the fraction controls how much how much of this we're actually going to desaturate. So what we can do is actually pull out a 3 vector instead of a scalar, because it allows us to change the saturation of each channel instead of just the entire thing globally. What that allows us to do is change the hue and saturation of the entire texture map instead of just turning it to gray. And this will be useful for matching colors up later if we need to. So we'll name this one, we'll just call this saturation. Actually, let's think of something to like a better naming structure. Let's just say BC for base color saturation, because later down the road we could have similar names between each module, and we kind of want to make sure that they don't clash for things that we don't want to clash. Okay, so we got that. Our next thing that we need to do is adjust the intensity. So what we can do for that is using a multiply node. And then for that one, we'll just use a scalar parameter and call this BC intensity. And we'll just set this default as 1. We also need to change the saturation to 1. So right now, if we preview this, we can see that this is actually, looks like it's desaturating it, which is what it's supposed to be doing. So a way that we could change this to be saturation instead of desaturation is, I think we could probably use a 1 minus. Let's check this out. That should invert everything. Yeah. So it's 1 extra calculation, but it's fine. Okay, now that we have that, so this just kind of flips this value on its head. Next thing we want to do is adjust the contrast. So in order to adjust contrast, we use the power node. And attach a scalar parameter, was called this base color contrast. I think we set this to 1. Start previewing. Should be fine. If we increase the contrast, you can see the contrast is increasing a lot. Okay. Cool. And since we already have this saturation node, we shouldn't need to tint it, but I guess we can just add it. Let's do a multiply, and we're going to be multiplying a 3 vector on top of this, and we'll just call this base color tint. So this is going to apply a color on top of our base color map. We don't want to set this to white because if we multiply by 1, it's not going to change anything. We technically don't need this node because we can change it within the saturation, but I guess this way is nice to have as well. Cool. Now we have everything that we need for our first base color module. Let's just change this. Oops, convert to a parameter. What I want to do is BC color, just to keep things in line here. Cool. All right. And now we might as well start organizing things a bit as far as inputs. Because if we go back to the material instance here, we can see that we have these globals, and the global is just going to put all the variables within these groups here, and we kind of want to separate that out so that things are a little bit more easy to preview. So how we can do that is go here, and under the material expression there's a group, so we'll want to change the name of that, and I'm thinking we're just going to change this. Let's do 0, 1 maps. So the idea is we're going to break this down into different groups, and then for each module, every texture map is going to go into this maps group. That way they're all kind of in one place. Let's go ahead and do that. You can also just put it into a base color group, but for the rest of these, we'll just do this one will be 0 to base color, and just make sure the rest of these are in the base color group, as well as the switches and this guy. Cool. That should work. Save it. Cool. And now you can see we have maps and base color. And then if we use base color map, it goes to there. But if we turn that off, it just goes to base color here, and then we can change that. But if we turn the map back on, we get this base color adjust, because after use base color map is true, we get access to this this switch here. So if we turn this on to true, we'll get access to all of this stuff here. So go here, base color adjust, and then we can change the contrast if we want, intensity, which is basically just brightness, and then we can change saturation. So we can change each channel. So if we need to make them like more green, or we can even increase the saturation that way. And then we also get a tint if we want to change the colors that way as well, which I'm pretty sure it's probably acting the same way as it. Go ahead and save that out. And cool. So this is our first module. In the next video, we'll just keep on going through the line and adding more. See you there.